So it was just a few weeks ago that I came back from yet another NAMM show in Anaheim. I was searching high and low for my Holy Grail acoustic guitar. I made a video about it. Over the years, I played hundreds of fantastic guitars there, but only a handful that captured my heart and soul as a musician and made me want to play them and own them. But still, I never pulled the trigger. And I think it's because I was measuring all those gorgeous sounding and easy playing new guitars against two magical vintage guitars that I already own. This is actually a Martin 028 from 1889. This is over 130 years old today, and it was built for gut strings, so I have it strung with the modern equivalent. These are Aquila Nile gut strings from Italy. It's warm and bright and resonant, and it's really loud for such a small-bodied guitar. Well, then there's my 1964 Gibson J-50. This is the same model and age of Gibson acoustic that James Taylor played on Sweet Baby James and Mudslide Slim and One Man Dog. And I've tweaked and perfected it over the years to the point where it's pretty hard to beat. So both of these are holy grails in their own way. You know, I love them, I play them a lot, and I always get a little thrill when I hit the first notes and they resonate and vibrate into my body. I realize now that owning these guitars helped kind of dial down the urgency of my Holy Grail quest. I didn't need a Holy Grail, but I did know one was out there because I'd already played it almost 20 years ago. So I have a friend and former bandmate, Paul Manfrini. He owned a Martin HD-40MK. That's a full-size dreadnought based on a vintage D28, but with some major upgrades. I'm going to tell you about those in a couple minutes. When I played Paul's HD-40, I actually felt it was even more special than any D18 or 28 or 35 I'd ever played. Okay, so what is an HD-40MK? Not a common model. I mean, definitely not. There were only 251 of them ever made. So stick around to find out what it is and to hear why it's my Holy Grail. Hey, if you like this and my other videos, please help me grow the channel by liking, commenting, and sharing. It makes a huge difference. I really appreciate it. All right, the venerable C.F. Martin and Company of Nazareth, Pennsylvania. It's the oldest and arguably the most prestigious guitar maker in the world. They've been making excellent guitars continuously since 1833. I mean, that is decades before the Civil War. 190 years of Martin guitars so far. So that makes it a fairly recent development that in 2001, one of Martin's main designers, a guy named Dick Boak, had the idea of working with Eric Clapton to develop a signature model. It was based on the triple 042 that Eric played on the MTV Unplugged concert. It was a hugely successful project for Martin. Clapton's publicist, Ronnie Lippin, owned one of Eric's signature Martins, and she had it in her office. And one day, Mark Knopfler's there, he picks up the guitar, and he loves it. Now, just in case you don't know, Mark Knopfler is the Dire Straits guitarist and an incredible solo artist. He's sold well over 100 million records. When he played that Clapton signature model, he wondered about doing his own signature model. So Ronnie called Dick Boak at Martin and asked if he'd like to work with Mark. And it turns out Mark is Dick's favorite guitarist. So he immediately said yes. And the Clapton and Knopfler models became the genesis of a project that just took off for Martin and still continues today. Many of the world's great artists have created Martin's signature editions, and most of them working with Dick Boak. So Boak worked with each artist to create a guitar that would capture their musical personality and their preferences. So I'm talking about the choice of woods, the body and neck shapes, the inlays, and all the other decorations and the unique touches that would make a particular guitar that artist's own Holy Grail. So I think of this limited edition signature series and these models as Martin's own Holy Grail project. And they've produced a who's who of signature models. I mean, here's Dick Boak talking about some of his favorite projects.
Paul Simon, he's still playing this guitar today. This is Sting in New York City. Perhaps my favorite guitarist, Mark Knopfler of Dire Straits, remarkable artist. And even on summer vacation, how would it be to spend time with John Mayer on his ranch in Livingston, Montana?
So all of the early signature edition Martins appear in Dick Boak's coffee table book called Martin Guitar Masterpieces. This is really a beautiful book.
My great friend Steve Miller suggested that I write a book about the experiences that I'd had with more than 100 different artists and their collaborations. Steve wrote the foreword to the book.
Okay, so back to the HD-40MK. MK is for Mark Knopfler. So Boak singles out Mark as his own favorite guitarist, and his admiration and respect for Mark apparently made the HD-40MK project extra special to him. Here's Dick Boak again.
I can't think of anybody more than Mark Knopfler who has such a touch, and he's turned out to be a real kind, warm gentleman.
Now I'm telling you, the memory of playing my friend Paul's Knopfler Dreadnought had stayed with me, right? It kind of haunted me, because the second I played it, I said, this may be the perfect guitar. It's definitely the best acoustic guitar I've ever played. And I've played a lot. And the wood hadn't even aged yet. So for the past many years now, I've visited lots of guitar shops and I've monitored all the online music merchants because I'm always looking to see if the Martin MK model ever goes up for sale. And I've only seen like 6, maybe 7 come available. 2 were in the US and they got listed and sold before I even saw them. 2 are in Japan. They both sold for over $10K. I've seen 3 in Europe, 1 in Italy, another in the Netherlands, and there's one available in Belgium right now, almost $13,000. I mean, beyond my price range, and to me it feels risky because for me, here in California, how can I really judge the pedigree of guitar in Japan or Europe, right? But then a couple weeks ago, something unexpected happened. I'd just done a whole video about my quest for the Holy Grail guitar at NAMM, and in that video I talked specifically about the HD-40MK. And then this listing showed up on reverb.com. I kind of couldn't believe it. It's the exact model, mint condition, listed by Six String Brokerage, a 5-star guitar shop right there in Nazareth where Martins are built. It's the second to last guitar in the whole run of 251, so you know they've perfected the process by then. And Boak family owned. What? Yes, turns out Dick Boak, who co-designed the guitar with Mark Knopfler, had bought it himself using his Martin employee discount. He bought it on behalf of his brother John, who's also a huge Knopfler fan. So here we are 21 years later, and John has consigned the guitar for about $9,000 plus shipping. Now, I've always said my theoretical Holy Grail price limit is $10,000, but that was a wishful number that ignored economic reality. So I considered just ignoring this listing, but then I knew I'd regret it. So I talked to my wife, Bara, about my predicament, right? Talked to my kids, my music-loving kids, and they said, you know, just do what you know in your heart to be right. So my heart said to just make an offer. You know, one that would respect them as sellers, but that I'd feel good about and right about if they said yes. So that is one of the things I love about reverb.com. You can make any offer. It might not be accepted, but there's no harm in trying. So I just submitted the highest offer I really felt comfortable with, and I included a personal note. I explained, my long-term search for the right HD-40MK and how that full-size steel string dreadnought was going to be the perfect complement to my small-bodied historic nylon string 028 that I inherited from my grandfather. Then I waited. Right? So some pins and needles, but only for an hour, because not only did John Boak accept the offer, he told Six String Brokerage that I had to have this guitar. And now I actually do. This had to make a week-long journey from Pennsylvania to California, very carefully packed, and the unboxing was an event. I think I was partially in shock, especially when I saw it really was in mint condition. It had all the paperwork, and it played even better and more balanced than I remembered.
Sounds perfect.
Wow.
It's like the perfect acoustic sound. It's almost like there's natural,
Almost like there's reverb.
or something. It's crazy.
Since then, I've been playing a lot, and I keep asking myself, what exactly makes this my Holy Grail? So let's take a look at what Mark Knopfler and Dick Boak spec'd to make this model special. I mentioned they based it on an HD-28 vintage model, and then Mark chose a rosette dating from 1840, tortoise-colored pickguard, white inlaid black bridge pins, bone, nut, and saddle. And all the decoration is just subtle and beautiful. It's not blingy, right? It's got the bold herringbone inlay around the top. It's got snowflake inlays in the fretboard, and then Mark's signature between the 17th and 20th frets. And then the finish is all polished gloss with a vintage toner on the top. Love this color. You can see it's glossy on the back too. The headstock has the CF Martin logo inlaid in mother of pearl. There's even a little dinosaur hidden inside on the neck block because Mark actually has a dinosaur species named after him, Masiacosaurus knopfleri. Apparently there was a team of paleontologists, they were working in Madagascar, and for weeks on end, they only made new discoveries when Mark's music was playing. So no Knopfler, no discoveries, and they decided to name the dinosaur for him. Cool detail, and you have to unearth it by looking deep inside. Speaking of the inside, it's X-braced, pre-war style, just an inch from the sound hole. I don't know if you can see that. You can see the braces kind of in there. And then there's the label signed by Mark and Chris Martin IV. And then finally, the wood. The bound neck is mahogany. It's in a modified V. It's kind of rare, but it's exactly what my 1889 Martin has, and it's my favorite neck design. I mean, the V just tucks perfectly into my palm. Fretboard is ebony, also my favorite, same as on my 028. Ebony belly bridge, and the back and sides are East Indian rosewood. Gorgeous. It's warm and mellow, but still articulate. And then there's the top. It's solid Italian alpine spruce. Now, I love the Italian connection because back in the 80s, the Italian Foreign Ministry gave me a scholarship to study at the University of Florence. So I have this personal connection. I speak some Italian. But, you know, that affinity wouldn't be enough. This is a rare alpine spruce from the Val di Fiemme. That's the Valley of Flames. It's way up in the Dolomites. And it's the same species of spruce that was used by Antonio Stradivari to make the greatest violins in the world. So it's resonant, it has great dynamics, and just perfect string-to-string definition and balance. This is really wood worthy of a Holy Grail. It certainly inspired Mark. Here's what he said about this guitar. Martin sent me this beautiful guitar with all the stuff I wanted. It played like a dream, and I couldn't put it down. I was really loving that guitar, sitting and playing, writing songs on it, and after a while I thought, well, I guess I'd better go make an album of this. So those songs became the Ragpicker's Dream. It's a powerful 55-minute long, mostly acoustic album. I've read that it was also inspired by Mark's father and the other dignified but common men like him in England. And you know, I've said in other videos how certain guitars inspire the songwriting process, and writers like Jimmy Page and Elvis Costello talk about how specific guitars had certain songs in them just waiting to come out. And this Knopfler guitar already has new songs emerging. So I'm happy to say the music that this has locked inside is definitely going to be set free. All right, thanks for sharing this quest with me. My Holy Grail acoustic guitar, the Martin HD-40MK, Mark Knopfler Signature Dreadnought. So what do you think of Dick Boak and Mark Knopfler's creation? Please leave a comment. I hope you love the sound as much as I do. Of course, this is just one of many acoustic and electric guitars I've featured here and on GuitarDiscoveries.com. Most of the other guitars are way less expensive, but each has its own unique value as a creative, musical, and even spiritual tool. So there's a lot to explore. Now, if you are searching for your own Holy Grail guitar, I want to leave you with two important bits of advice. Number one, play them all. Literally every guitar is different, even from the same builder. And number two, buy the specific guitar you love, not the name. It does not have to be a big name to be a great guitar. All right, I hope that helps, and I hope to see you next time for more guitar, voice, and recording discoveries.